guys, it's the old fella back again. I'm going to give it a bit of a try out in the shop this evening and see how long I can stay on my legs and get away with it. I'm a stubborn devil, I hate giving up. And it's cooler, just briefly. Anyway, following on from the last video, I was talking about making a chip tray on the lathe, and this is a piece of what is it, 20 gauge, 22 I should think, and it's the old stuff called stucco, you know, this pattern which is not going to be used for much. I'll show you that in the lathe in a minute. Anyway, in the meantime, trying to progress this idea to make wiper units for Lawrence Harrisim's lathe. Still not really sure quite how best to deal with it, because I'm using small pieces, and I've used the shear to cut 4 nominal squares, and I'm going to clean up the main edges and get them fairly uniform. And I was trying to work out how I'm going to cut the V. It did occur to me to set this up in the mill and use a milling cutter to mill that out, but in fact the material is not really stiff enough. It's going to flap around and make a hell of a mess, so I'm not quite sure yet how I'm going to cut that, but I'm going to clean that up first and we'll see what the heck happens after that. If you saw the last bits and pieces video, you might just notice that we've got things a little bit cleaned up. Hell of a mess was in there. Anyway, this is a tight fit, and it just goes down in there. I take it right up to the end, which is just in frame, I think, and then further down, you can't quite see it, there's another support on the casting, so we're covered for about a foot, which is a main area of chips. And I can use, if I remember where I put it, if you saw my video quite some time ago, my magnetic picker-upper. So rather than take the tray out, I'll probably use that periodically, and it'll stop the worst of the chips going down the bottom, which is always a bigger clean-up. I don't know how bitty this video is going to be. It's probably going to be in several sections over a period of time, possibly. Anyway, I've used a flat wheel just to get these sides more or less even. Got a centre line there. The back needs levelling up, but that'll have to wait, I think. This is the area I'm interested in. Still absolutely uncertain as to how best to get my V on here, because this material is not heat treated, it's half hard, and if I've got a cutter working on 4 pieces as a sandwich, I'm not sure it's going to take it, so I'm going to deliberate on that and see what we're going to do. Well, I'm at least going to mark this up. I've eyeballed as close as I can, and I'm using a piece of square. I don't want to move it. Decent scratch that side. I've got this extra light on here which might be a bit funny. So, not sure that's even visible. So I've got a mark on there, just got to work out now how I'm going to cut it. bearing in mind, like most of my jobs, or a lot of them, decide what to do as I go along. I mean, this is too small to use a jigsaw on. One thing about using a couple of cant twists is that I can keep one tight while I change the other. And what I'm thinking is, I've just flap disced this side to get reasonable. Now this clamp is very tight, so if this was to now go in a vise holding just above the jaws, and with the clamp here possibly actually a tiny bit higher, I might try milling that just for whatnots and giggles. I'll see if I can set it up and see where we go from there. Well, there's a lot of Mark 1 eyeball here, guys. I've set my square to my vertical scratch line, and the lower horizontal scratch line is also eyeballed to the vice jaw, and they both agree. I've moved the cant twist up a little higher, just back from the cutting line, and I've got a brand new 5/8 mil cutter on here because there's quite a lot of depth there with a side cut. So I'm going to take, again we'll see how it's going to work out. It may well be I've got to change to a larger cutter, but what I was thinking was with a new cutter I'll take it right down to the bottom line, and that then just leaves me what's left. But there again, I'm having second thoughts because of unsupported areas. It's going to chatter like crazy. It may do that anyway on this area when we get further down. Question is whether the clamping's adequate. So I think we'll try it. I may have to change the cutter, and I'll set the DRO up and get a final position. So I'm going to take a test cut, make sure I'm on the correct X position, and then go from there and see what the hell happens. Well, we're pretty much on the line, and the tolerance is not exactly working to tenths, is it? I'll take about a 30th cut. It's pretty close to my line, so I'm going to carry on that, and I'll take another 25. Well, it's pretty soft material, so I can't quite give you an over-the-shoulder view, and this clamp gets in the way, so I'm going to take it a little bit further and come back to you on it. Being soft material, it'll accept a 50th thou cut, so I'm risking it, but I've got to watch it when I get to the width of the cutter. Back in a minute. I'm taking lighter cuts now because, well, you'll see in a minute, I'll take 25 and you'll see what beyond the width of the cutter now. So you can see there, we've got, can't even find a pointer where I want one. You can see that slight lip there, I should think. And at the moment the clamping's holding it together, so I think we're alright. So I'm going to go down to my bottom mark, zero the Z, and then come across to finish it off, so we'll see how it works out. I doubt you'll see I'm coming as close as I dare. I don't suppose you'll see the line, which is, I've got about 25 thou to go, so I'm going to be pretty careful and take it down in stages. It's about 20 thou, we'll see what that leaves me. Yeah, there's about 8 thou to go, so I'm going to finish that carefully and then finish the other bit off. Just taking off the residual at the end here. So you haven't got far to go. I hope the Z-axis is reliable. Never really checked it all that much. Well, I went back to 0 on the Z, so I've never really pushed it to the limit to see whether it's accurate enough, but that's held pretty good. Bit of a fiddly job just to make V's on a piece of, or 4 pieces of aluminum, but I wanted it to be consistent, and bear in mind these are, this is basically A, not critical, and B, it's only a support for the wiper and the felt, which I've got to work out how to fix that. Anyway, let's take that out and have a look. Right, still with me? It's pretty boring, isn't it? I'll just put one other clamp on and I'll move this one down. We've obviously got pretty major burrs on one side. It's not too bad. I mean, this stuff's pretty darn soft, really. I think that last cut was pretty close to level. I don't actually trust the Z-axis absolutely 100% to get back to your mark. X and Y are pretty good for that. And it looks like I've got I don't know. I'm just being fussy. You can always see the shadow where the cut has been close to the previous cut. Alright, so let's undo it and see what the hell we've got. Oh dear. All nicely stuck together. And the outsides need deburring. I should probably have to get a cutting knife in there to separate. That's the result of all that flap disc on the edge. You can barely see the join actually. Trying to see where I can get the knife in. There we are. Okay, so God, the reflection's terrible on this stuff. So there's one. I don't know whether you can. Sorry, I keep going out of frame, don't I? You may or may not be able to see that. Close-ups are so difficult to get focus. You can see which side was side milled, but being a new cutter, it's pretty darn good. I say these are only supports, for heaven's sake. So these have got to take the, I had a cut piece of rubber somewhere. I don't know what I did with it, amongst all my junk down here. Here's a piece of felt. I guess that's a start. Probably lost or dropped the piece of rubber. Oh no, there it is. So these have got to be positioned very carefully, and these have got to be cut out much better. It's not going to be a scissor job. Notice incidentally, on the rubber, we don't go to the top of the V, we've got the flat. There's an 1/8 flat on top of the rail, which doesn't matter for the support. But I think I'm going to mark up some rubber and use a chisel, get some straight cuts. But you've seen me mock this up before, but in essence, you know, this is what we're doing. I've still no idea how I'm going to fit them so they stay put. Thinking of all sorts of things. Anyway, that's enough for the moment. At least we got those back plates made. Well, I got this rubber marked up. I'm thinking actually, I thought this was pool liner, it's actually an inner tube, which is a bit more flexible, but bear in mind that the rail has an 1/8 flat at the top. So what I'm trying here, this is slightly more than an 1/8, this chisel, but I've used that to get my top cut. And then, if I can get in the right position on the line, I'm going to see, this is a bit empirical really, I'll try and get on the line and see how this comes out. This is a bit of a fiddle. Well, there we are, we got one cut out, and that should approximate the aluminum, fairly close, but obviously it will overhang. So looking at it from the back, I can't stay in frame all the time here, it's probably going to be something like that, with just enough projecting beyond the aluminum there to do the wiping. It's just all suck it and see it. I mean, really. I'll finish cutting these out and get the final pieces. Well, that's got them cut out as close as we can get. I don't know whether there's much difference between them. I've tried to keep it fairly consistent, and yeah, they look pretty much the same. And I think the overlap, this is looking from behind on the backing piece, that they'll probably show about that much actually, so there's enough to get have the flexibility for wiping. And the next thing is this weird experiment. We've got to do something with the felt. Just got some old green baize here, so I'm going to probably try and cut pieces the same as the rubber as accurately as I can. Of course this moves in all directions. It's going to be a job to get it really consistent, but we'll see what we can do with that. And then after that, it's the big problem of how the heck to fix it all together. I'm almost wondering actually whether to make the sandwich. Here's this rough piece I cut before. It may be worth gluing the felt, glue the felt to the rubber. Stage one, alright? Get the rubber and felt sandwich as a unit. Then we'll worry about how to fit it to the aluminum backing. Still worried about glue if there's going to be oil on this felt. Assuming that probably, now this is just thinking how it might work. This is very fiddly. Oh, it's very fiddly. So when it's fixed to the aluminum, I'm thinking that you can come along with an oil can on the top of the felt so that it's always impregnated. That's the theory. Well, sort of theory anyway. Right, I've stood long enough at the moment, so I'm going to call a halt to that, and we'll try and do something with this felt as the next operation. I am wondering actually if I used pop rivets from the back of the mounting plate, whether the slight protrusion would really matter when it's up against, when it's up against the cross slide. Perhaps it won't matter too much. I've got to think on that. Sleep on it, as they say. Now some further thought given to how we're going to fix these bits and pieces. That's becoming a bit clearer. I think we might be alright with pop rivets, because I've got, nobody can see that one, hard to tell whether you can see it, but it's got like a very slight countersunk head on it, which is not going to stick out very much. And I went through, I've got a load of pop rivets, they're very old, and I've went through to find washers for this one, this size. Dug out a load of washers from my drawer of assorted thousands. And then digging a bit further, found that smaller pop rivet, which is significantly smaller, which requires, yeah, that'll need an 1/8 drill. And by sheer chance, I've got a boatload of little washers. I've had them for ages. Obviously we've got to have what we might call a back washer, because when we come through the aluminum and then the rubber and the felt, we need something to expand the pop rivet onto, thus a washer. So, continuing my thinking aloud, which is what I do so much, isn't it? Try and work out what I'm going to do, change my mind, change it again. So I think the way forward is, let's put these washers out of the way, because I think what's going to work is we'll have I'll cut some pieces of felt, and just slightly bigger than the rubber, and we'll stick the two together with some CA, probably just a couple of dabs of CA maybe. Then use my chisel again to cut the profile. Do that 4 times. That'll then give us a rubber and felt sandwich. Then we can lightly glue onto a back plate, get the positioning right, and then drill and pop rivet. Sounds easy, doesn't it? So this funny little project I think is advancing. So we'll work out what we'll do as we go along. So I'm going to cut some felt up and do some gluing, see where we go from there. More thinking needed here. I was working out that possibly if we glue the sandwich onto the back plate and then try and drill the whole deal, if the drill going through the sandwich, I've got these made up now, right, felt and rubber, but the drill is going to catch particularly on the felt and tear it to shreds and probably unglue it. So I put a couple of dots on here and thought, well, that's probably about where we're going to fix it. Then took the template and punched a couple of holes. It looks a bit beaten up because I had to use a planishing hammer to just straighten it out. This is very, very thin. Use that to mark up. I've got one hole on there, and I'm going to try and get the next one, but the felt is an absolute devil to cut, and I use this little transfer deal to get a mark on the rubber. This is a bit empirical, I'm trying to see what I'm doing here. I've got to get over the dot. It's not really super critical. I can get through the rubber just fine. But to get that hole in the felt, oh well. So that, again, the usual problem, whether you can see anything. So I've got 2 holes in there. That's clearance. So what we'll try and do now, I think, is use some adhesive now. I think it's getting a little closer. Get some adhesive on it and get this stuck to the back plate, and then once the I'm using CA glue, just a small amount, and hopefully then with care we'll drill from the other side to get the hole in the aluminum without disturbing the felt and rubber too much. That's the current plan. Keep changing my mind as usual, but I'm going to have to be very careful not to disturb that rubber felt sandwich. Amazing what's involved here just for 4 of these little fellas. Probably the major problem is trying to make them all very close to being the same. So these are all punched out. These back plates are already been just eased on the edges with some 600 grit, and that may be visible, I'm not sure. Not actually quite in frame as well as I should be. That's just been scratched up a little, get a bit of key. So I'm going to try and get these glued. I hope I get a take, and then we'll try and drill. And then we might be finished if it works out. Yeah, more empirical. One of these has turned out a little bit squiffy. The main thing is that from the rear side, shall we say, that the wiper is exposed by about 1/8. I'll probably tidy that one up. The others have come out fairly square, so I'm going to leave the CA to cure a bit, and then we'll come back and see if we can drill without tearing the thing apart. I'm just drilling. I've just put an 1/8 drill through, but it's just a smidgen tight for the pop rivet, so I've gone up to 964, and that seems to give me good clearance. So all I'm doing is just drilling here against a piece of scrap wood. Oh, I'd already done that one. Let's try again. Alright, so I'll check and see if it goes through alright. Yeah, I've just got a deburr the back of those, so I'm going to drill the others and then we'll pop rivet and see if we can call it a fix. Okay, one pop rivet in. Let's get the second one on. It's going to kick up the rubber at the bottom slightly, which I can't really help because it's compressing the rubber pretty considerably. Yeah, it's kicking up the rubber at the corner, but again, I don't think it's going to matter. I can't really avoid it. And at the back here, the pop rivet's not adding a lot, so when this is screwed to the cross slide, probably offered up to the rail, make a mark, make a hole, drill and tap, and then make the hole just a slight slot, so there's a bit of up and down adjustment. So I'm going to finish the pop rivets, and then I think we're nearly there. Okay guys, let's call it a wrap. No idea whether these are going to work properly. Difficult to tell. And I don't know whether in the, shall we call it the trailing direction, whether the rubber's going to pick up, lift off. On the other hand, on the clearing direction, which we'll say is this way, providing there's enough contact with the rail, and I think they'll push the chips out of the way. Just this one that's a bit squiffy. Very hard to get them exactly the same. But I think the fixing method is adequate. And if oil is dripped on top to get the felt saturated, it should give a little bit of oil. This is, I should say, this is more or less the Mark I prototype, really, and see if it damn works. Bit involved as a video, to be honest, for such a small, seemingly small project, but there was so much to try and work out as to how to actually achieve it. So it remains to be seen whether Lawrence will be able to use them and get the result he wants. So I'm going to call it a wrap there, and if you stayed this long with great fortitude, thanks for watching.